Going to start off with the introduction from the panelists. I'm going to start with you, Sabrina, then I'll move on to Edgar.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Kenyana, for the opportunity and the global platform. Like you've already heard, I'm called Atwine Sabrina. I'm a law student, second year law student at Islamic University in Uganda, and founder and CEO of Nima Range Initiative. Very passionate about women in leadership and so excited to be a part of all of you. Yeah, thank you so much.
To Edgar.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Edgar Mutumsa. I'm a student of Petroleum Engineering and Environmental Management in my third year. I'm a very passionate person about gender activism and also climate change activism. And I'm really glad to be here, especially to discuss an issue of women empowerment and their role in leadership. An issue I think I would have interesting views, and definitely I look forward to this discussion with everyone that is involved. Yeah, thank you so much and welcome everyone.
We're so happy to have you here this evening. And today we're going to be talking about the role of women in leadership. And basically we're going to be looking at the role of leadership, the role of women leadership in the organization context, the political, and also why particularly during this time, it is very important for us to have women in leadership. And so Sabrina is of course going to represent the female mind, and her mind as well. She's going to give us insight about why this is particularly important. And we'll also hear from Edgar about why this is important or not. And we'll have to hear that from them. So let's dive right into it. So the first question, for Sabrina, you're going to have 3 minutes to answer this, and the same question will move on to Edgar. So, of course, the most obvious question, do we really need women in leadership? And if you agree with me, why? And if you do not, why not? Let's start with you, Sabrina.
Women in leadership. This is a topic that I really feel so deeply about. And I agree 100% that we need women in leadership. Let it be politically, socially, in all aspects, women in leadership. And first of all, I would like all of us to recognize that leadership is not gender associated. It's not limited to either male or female or something. That's like the general belief, yeah. But to me, why it is very important to have women in leadership, it's because of their personal characteristics and personal traits that set them apart. However much like all men and women are actually endowed with the right of being leaders in their communities, I just like strongly believe that women have these special characteristics about them that actually make them great leaders. Yeah, we can start from our social backgrounds, how our parents, especially our mothers, help us like so much. They become our role models, they mentor us, they motivate us. They're always like great leaders. They're always like present whenever our fathers are not present to give us a direction. And to me, I believe that's what leadership is all about. Yeah, so a leader is a person who influences and encourages a group of people to work towards the realization of goals, right? And if we are to go with that, I really like go ahead to like strongly believe that women are actually great leaders and people would want in our communities to be leaders. Yeah. The other day I was talking to my friend, and we were trying to ask ourselves different questions about why it is important for women to be leaders. And first, they have the advantage of these specific characteristic traits about them, which I'm going to look at like briefly. One, women have they pay attention to details. Yeah. So that would mean that they focus, and with this focus and paying attention to details, they become so creative. I'm not saying men are not creative, but if we look at parents and our fathers and mothers, you will tell something to your dad, to your parents, but always, or usually it is your mom who will always like remember and have solutions and all that. Or sometimes you don't even have to mention what you're going through, but she already knows, so she pays attention to the details. Then we all know, like, these are quotes that has always been a slogan for everyone, that if you educate a woman, you will have educated the whole world. So there's just this something special about women, that whenever they learn something, they don't want to keep it to themselves. They actually send it to everyone. Yeah, so there are just so many things that make it so important for women to be leaders, and all that, from transformational leadership styles to focus, and being task oriented and multitask. Yeah, very many things. So I totally agree that it is very important for us to have women in leadership.
So thank you, Sabrina. Sabrina thinks that women have incredible traits about them that make them very important in as far as leadership roles and leadership vacancies is concerned. Let us hear from Edgar, see if he agrees with this narrative. Edgar?
Okay, thank you so much for that, moderator. I agree with Sabrina on one thing and I disagree on the other. I agree that women are very important in leadership for the reasons I'm going to give to you, but I don't agree that they have different traits, because traits are things that are personal. Women who are horrible leaders have horrible traits of leadership. I also know women who are who will have nice and great traits of leadership, just like how men share in the same kind of trait differences. So because traits are personal, and because women are also persons of humans, then these women also deserve the kind of space in leadership, because they can as well have the good traits of leadership, but they can also have the bad traits of leadership. So there is no need for monopoly to have the space of leadership that comes only men and not women, because I don't feel like any kind of thing that should put women out of these spaces. An example you can get in here, for instance, is we have a scenario currently in Uganda where we have a certain ministry, a ministry of health, led by a minister who is female, with a permanent secretary who is female, but they were being summoned here and they are being called out for not accounting for the monies that they were supposed to have distributed to the health sector, the 29 billion. You know this, right? So this is the ministry led by the women. I mean, the permanent secretary and all that. But the same poor trait of corruption and lack of accountability still manifests even in such a ministry, right? So that and that is something that is bad and that is also consistent in some other ministries led by men. Last time we had a ministry led by Kahindo Kafiri. So same kind of inadequacies still exist. So there's really nothing special about women, but then there is nothing bad, uniquely bad about them that should disenfranchise them from leadership. And that's why women should be included just like their fellow men, because they are both good and bad, just on trait level and also on impact level. So that's why it's women should be included. That's why they're important in leadership. Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm staying with you, Edgar. So it is therefore your submission that yes, we need women in leadership, and that the idea that women have particular traits that make them particularly desirable in as far as leadership roles is concerned is not an issue, but that true, we need them. So I want to emphasize on that bit where you state that we do need women in leadership, and I want you to highlight for us briefly why we need them, because that is the most important bit of this conversation.
Okay, so why we need women is that we can look at the impact, because the question of leadership, the end goal is impact. So to answer whether women can be leaders, is the first answer: can women have impact, right? So in scenarios, so we've even already evidenced it. You have women like Ruth Nakalema and that kind of anti-corruption unit doing very great job. That alone shows you, like, that's pragmatically. that there is impact that women can have in leadership, they can change systems, and because of that capacity to impact, that is why we need them in leadership. That's right.
Okay, thank you very much, Edgar. So it is there for the submission of the panelists that it is true we need women in leadership, which makes this conversation a valid one. So it brings me to my next question. Why are we still having conversations like this about whether or not we need women in leadership? Is it because we have not admitted women in leadership? Is it because the women in leadership are not enough? Or is it because that the women already in leadership do not have as much impact as Edgar says they would have? So why do we have this particular conversation? Why don't we have women in leadership? And if we have them, why are they not being impactful enough for us to not have conversations like these anymore? I'll start with you, Sabrina.
Reason as to why this is still like a topic and a discussion each and every time is because of the society stereotypes, which is basically one of like the hindrances and blockers of having women in leadership. Recently, a friend of mine wrote my best in the poetry collection is called Society. So basically in this poem, he summons society and asks it, who gives you the authority to brand gender? Who gives you the authority to put our society on people? I feel like this is the block that we have when it comes to women in leadership. Take an example. I'll do my best to highlight some of these stereotypes that are still holding yet it wants leaders who are tough, assertive, determined, and yeah. So my point was society is one of like the core things that determine which kind of women leaders we want, much as women as well have own like responsibilities to take, like habits they should withdraw from, like the perfection trap, failing to enlist allies from day one, habits that hold them. There are so many that they should work on, but also society also holds like the women back, and to give this impact, it becomes very hard for them. Society will always just say that women should just like find a way of balancing work and life, which in the end is going to even like scare some women to even like represent in the leadership, because they are afraid to fail at one particular thing. They are afraid, if I become a leader and go for these higher positions, aren't I going to just be a mediocre and fail at being that senior leader, or fail at being a mother? And of course, society will be there to judge them and, say you're supposed to be a mother, or maybe if you're doing leadership, you should be great at this. So it's like a lot of pressure for what? It's a lot of pressure for the women. Yeah, so that's like among so many other reasons, that's like one of the reasons that actually makes us have this topic over and over and over again. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sabrina. So Edgar, Sabrina thinks that the reason why we're not having women in leadership, or why we keep coming back to this particular conversation, is because the women are being victimized by society, that society has blessed a lot of stereotypes that put a leash on how far women can go in as far as leadership is concerned. Do you agree with this? And if it's a simple yes, then we can move on to the next question so that we can cover up very many other things. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, panelists. First of all, I don't agree with that really. Yes, some extent it can play some part, but I really don't agree with it. And here is why. I think the problem is not really with society. We overblame society so much on everything that concerns women. The problem is with women themselves. For instance, we have different leadership positions at university levels, right? Last time Bara University was voting, out of the 6 people who expressed interest, only one was female. I don't think there was some society wait and say, oh, these students or these female students are supposed to be cooking home for kids because they're all students, right? So those says of, oh, it's supposed to be marriage are not existent at university spaces, but we still don't see women showing up. They don't just do that, I mean, they don't show up like in maybe those equivalent numbers. So I don't think there's any society that stops women from maybe engaging in just our youth-led activities. So I think it is a problem with them themselves, maybe because they are somehow scared or they are still wondering because it's like a new wave. Like you have a new wave where female leaders are coming up on board and it's all just happening like in this short span, you know. So maybe that's still why they're wondering, oh wait, will I even be accepted in? Like, is it real? Like, won't people even really like have those previous prejudices? Like, are they really done? You know, such questions run in their mind and somehow hinder them from coming up, or somehow they just feel like, maybe they won't accept me, even when they will actually be accepted. So I think it's a mindset that they just have to work on and change, but not through the society problem.
Okay, thank you, Edgar. So Edgar is of a view that the women themselves are not able, so the women themselves don't turn up, and it is particularly their fault that they do not show up for these leadership roles, and it's not entirely on society. On that, Edgar's view. So still on you, Edgar. I understand that during the Race for Guild president, you lost to a lady. Does this particularly paint the image of women as stronger in terms of campaigning, in terms of management of politics, and also does it make them good leaders in that aspect? Is it therefore also an indicator that women are good enough to freely compete in events like this?
Okay. Well, the fact is that politics always has different dynamics. Yeah. Why people win elections is a variety of many things. One can be time factor. One can be the organization of the campaign. Can be the base. Can be the money, the resources. Like very many things really at play. But one factor that really puts up is the idea that actually women are not limited or shackled by society as how everyone else on social media would want it to be. So it paints a picture that society is ready for a change. Society is ready to embrace even female leaders as long as we get into the race. And you participate just like how the politics games and diversities apply. They will apply to you. You maneuver around. So there's really no big bias against women as how we sometimes conceive it. It's what it really points out.
Okay. Edgar, before I move on from you, we cannot truly talk about women in leadership without highlighting the issue of affirmative action, because we understand that from time immemorial, the concept of bringing women into leadership roles has been highly fueled by the affirmative action. And there's a very interesting question in this chat. How far will we get to know that it is now time to let women freely compete? When do we get to scrap off the women's seat? When do we get to scrap off extra rights that are given to women as a measure of making them compete for these leadership roles? When do we get to that level where we feel that now women are able and fully capable of competing for these roles alongside their male counterparts?
Yes, thank you. I think really that level is now. In times where we see women are leading, women are winning even fair elections, that means they're able to show their capacity and society is able to accept them. Because if that wasn't the case, then society would blast them off. In a world where we see more prime ministers and all that, like it's becoming more of female thing leadership. So then I think at a society where we also have at a point where we have like more people are in education and accessing this. So I think some rights of those affirmative action, the discussion to end affirmative action should start now, because otherwise it's just creating some prejudice again that maybe women are weaker, or oh yeah, they are competing but they still have some factors that are favoring them as women, so that's why they are winning. And a narrative that is not ideally true, because we've seen already some evidence where women are participating and are winning and are doing great things without any kind of support or pampering from any organization or any forms of affirmative action. So I think the time is now to start discussing whether we should eliminate the affirmative action program.
Okay, thank you so much, Edgar. I think I'll also pose this question, Sabrina. So, Sabrina, the concept of affirmative action is one that is entirely put in place to help fuel the women to join leadership roles, it pushes them, it enables them to actually compete with their male counterparts. Is this something that you think we should carry on? And if so, at what time will we be at that point where we do not need affirmative action for women to be leaders?
What I would submit on this, I think this could act, but the only thing I think could actually work as a win-win for everyone is having like these women having these women, however much we are shying away from the society stereotypes and the gender stereotypes that I'm going to keep highlighting and stressing out as hindrances to women. And also I would like to clarify that mentioning society stereotypes does not mean that women themselves can be a hindrance and a block to themselves. That's not what I try to do, to imply. So for us to reach like at a stage where we believe that now women are able to actually be competitive, they are able to be leaders, this would have to be a journey that is embraced by everyone. We would have to have like suggestions and roles that the society takes up, and suggestions and recommendations and insights that women take up. For example, like I had mentioned earlier, individuals, women should just like stand up and say no to these stereotypes on their own, because there's so many women who have done that and they are doing great in leadership. Personally, I don't really like allow myself to be bound by by these stereotypes that hold women back. But some of other women are actually held by these stereotypes. So it's like a movement that is going to be on an individual basis, and this is through us not refusing the fact that society and stereotypes and gender roles, all those things bring women leadership behind. We have to accept it, address the issue, and see the way forward. We have to like make sure that women themselves actually are standing up and saying no to these stereotypes. So it's only at that moment that we shall confidently say, okay, we feel like women are now there. They can be able to handle everything on their own without pressuring them. I mean, like, look at now, like at the workspace. Do you believe that some employers cannot employ women simply because they are worried about these leaves when they get pregnant? They are worried about all those things, and for that matter, they do not hire the women. So the moment we all like get to know our responsibilities and try to like, it's like a point of everyone and us accepting that there's a problem and finding solutions to the problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. You raise very pertinent issues. However, I feel like going back to the question of impact, because, for example, with over half of the parliament of Uganda constituting of women, and with having very many women CEOs, we recently had a woman speaker. Even though she's out, she was a woman speaker for 10 years. And we have had women in very big roles in as far as the political and the organizational setup of this country is concerned, which raises a very big concern. First off, is it the fact that we lack quality in terms of women leadership, or do we lack quantity? And if so, I would want, for example, to start with Edgar to highlight a factor. If, for example, we had over 10 million women in leadership, and if we had those women not doing so much, but they are there, does that improve the quality of the lives of the women they represent? Or do we need more quality leaders who are women compared to the numbers? Edgar.
Thank you so much. I think this is the question that I've been waiting for the time. Number one, that it's very important that we strategize, especially in the now. This is not the time where we start asking the questions of inclusion. I think the time is over. Now is time on asking for accountability, questioning the impact. We have almost close to 200 female MPs in our parliament, but only tell me one bill that has ever been passed or brought up by a female MP. You may not find any, or except there's other debates that we're about to divorce. So then the question becomes, really, is this the impact that we wanted that we're fighting for. All the time we are trying to fight for inclusion, to just have women included, and that's all. That when we have 50 male MPs and 50 women MPs, so that is the kind of society we want. I don't think that's the issue. So women that are in leadership should be able to embrace this factor and know that the question now towards them is what impact are they making, and not just about them being included. Because there are very many policies that are already being put in place. We now have, even before people are now being employed, we are having where companies, it's already in the policy of company that you have to employ this percentage of women. That means women will definitely still have the jobs and all that. So the question of impact is important. I don't think we need to go so much on inclusion. Women are a woman's role in leadership is not to be included, is to deliver. So now, then, and here's the problem. Here's the problem. The problem is now when you call them out for not delivering, now they play again the cat dog game of, oh my God, they are blaming us because we are women. Oh my God, they're going to start because you are women. Oh, this society, right? Like they're not ready like to take on the responsibility. Like most females or most women largely, because of the method we keep on sending in all-time conference of women is about inclusion. No one ever goes on the angle of delivery. What are women delivering? What impact are they causing? So I think we should start now shift the discussion from just including women. We need women to what are women doing? What are women delivering? What impact are they having, right? So I think then that's when we can really have the impact that we need, because women in leadership, their role is not just for women. You don't become a leader because of a female leader to just aid for your fellow women. Your role, your obligation is to the entire society, not just to your fellow women or to your fellow, So I think it's something, a mindset that has changed. And an evidence to this was just the last speaker. The last speaker of parliament. I was so, shocked to find fellow women that are really studied and learned blaming her that she wasn't effective because she was not able to do some things for females, as if becoming a woman and a leader, the obligation is just to women. No, your obligation is not to women. Your obligation is to society. And that's what we should start questioning. Impact, delivery. That's what I think.
Thank you so much, Edgar. You raise two important issues. The fact is that what we need right now is not the issue of conclusion, but the issue of impact. How impactful are the women that we send into these leadership capacities? And secondly, is the question of who do the women leaders account to? Do they account to the women or do they account to society? And I will let Sabrina answer those questions. Sabrina, do you think the women leaders that are already in power or that are already leading do not have enough impact to justify their positions? And secondly, on the issue of, actually, first start with that.
That women must know that it's not enough to be there up there as what? As leaders. That's not enough. I really believe and always tell the young people I work with that they really have to do work that is going to impact their what? Their society. It's not a matter of just saying, I'm a woman, I need to be included, I need to be involved. I always ask, for you as a woman, what are you putting on the table? That's very important. So I agree with Edgar on that issue. But also, like I said, I'm not going to just sit down and say that everything that is happening in the society, maybe the term society is becoming a problem. I should just start using us, people also, like the beliefs that people have, the opinions that people have, the stereotypes that people have, rotating gender stereotypes and all that. All those things are to women. Yeah, I would like to put it to the whole house determines what kind of women leaders they will have. Society's women leaders will reflect the quality of the society. I can give an example of a country like US, yeah. I want to like I know all of us who believe that they are more advanced than us, like when it comes to embracing women in leadership and all that. So if we compare with how the women leaders are in the US, it's like different from Africa. It's different from our tribe. It's different from our country. It's different from our local areas, because our societies have not 100% welcomed and agreed that women can actually what leaders, and this holds them what back. But also, like I said, women, they also have a responsibility to what to take. They must resist it by being satisfied with simply carrying titles or the creature comforts that come with what with leadership, flashy cars, stamped passports, and glossy auras. All those things should resist it from what? From them. It's not the point of just either here and here. I'm just, what are you putting on the what? On the table. That's also like a question I always to pose to what? To women. But also, I do not.
Sabrina, she also agrees that having women in leadership is not enough, but we also need to have them account for the positions that they hold and be impactful in those positions. So first I'm going to read the comments in the comment section. We have had a very active audience, and I'm starting with Ahereza, who says, sometimes my biggest worry is how do we raise up a girl child from childhood at home? If we want a long impact, we need to look at how are we raised for a safer future? So she thinks grooming is an important aspect of leadership. When Navana Chloe Nora says, by boosting their self-esteem and interacting with women who are successful in leadership. Joseph Tahinduka says, are there instances where humans can be a hindrance to themselves and society in terms of providing and availing themselves for leadership, be it men or women? I hope we have noted down that question, panelists. Muriat says, surely I also support the idea of women standing out and changing their mindset. That is a very important aspect. Thank you, Muriat. Akol Esther says that the women should just have a positive attitude towards leadership and encourage them to be focused in all they are doing. Thank you, Akol. Elizabeth says it is really so challenging, and I got to experience the hardship behind it when I stood in as the first female chief treasurer in Lehigh University, while beating my male competitor. Congratulations, this is amazing. Congratulations, Elizabeth. And Ndiam Simanta, Sharot says, women ought to be in leadership to participate in the decision-making policies as to positively impact society. I think this answers the question of who do women account to, only women or to the whole society. Desire Tendo says women should build self-esteem, and this is the strongest weapon of work that can lead to effectiveness in their societies and change the patriarchal thinking of the society. So self-esteem, confidence is a very important aspect of leadership. Thank you, Desire. Gerald says it's a good discussion. Thank you, Gerald. Glad to be with you. Timothy Kagweza says the future is female. Hearing this from a male makes it all the more amazing. Thank you, Kagweza. Ahereza says, great Fez at Timothy. Future is female. Thank you, Ahereza. Katsabe Brenda says women should appreciate the fact that the spaces we have now are very vital, and therefore for us in creating impact so as to achieve more for gender in power. Thank you, Katsabe. So the spaces that we have are very important in as far as skyrocketing our role as females is concerned. Maria says, to my opinion, why does the community or society exaggerate the negative impact of women in leadership? So whereas we also need to account, Maria thinks that we also over-exaggerate their negative impact as a way of prohibiting them from gaining these positions. Deborah Delme says women should always be motivated by their challenges. That is very true. And at Timango, Diana says women should support fellow women and not be against each other. So I'll be reading the comments as I pop in. But for now, I'm going to give an opportunity to two people in the audience. The first person is going to ask a question, and to the panelists or to myself or to any other person in the audience. And the second person is going to answer this question. So if you're ready to answer, you can raise up your hand and I'll surely pick you. You can raise up. Okay, Kausinja Masi. So Kausinja Masi, who is responsible for women who are not in leadership? If we wanted to ask women to be, if we wanted to create spaces for women, if we wanted to enable women to advance into these political roles or organizational roles or society and economy and all other spheres of leadership, who is responsible?
But to me, throughout the discussion, I think one of the biggest challenges we have is to look at women leaders as women and at men leaders as individuals. Today, I got a very disturbing encounter. Mbarara University Faculty of Medicine was voting their new dean. The previous dean was female and the new dean is male. These are two very different personalities. We all liked the one who won because he is just a good person. The previous one was a good person with her personal issues. But a comment came through that was saying, you see, these women are emotional. They rule with their emotions. When you realize women in big offices, everything was going to women, and yet this was really an individual that had been in office as an individual. So I think that right there is the problem. When one woman does something wrong, it's all women. When a man does something wrong, it's an individual. And I think that right there is where I blame society. And I blame society in the aspect that we are still so patriarchal. We still look at women because they are women and men because they are people. And yeah, that's my personal opinion. Going back to your question, who is responsible? I think everyone is responsible. I agree to the narrative that women actually need to change mentality. It's a conversation we were actually having in a previously concluded feminist meeting with Global Action, Global Platform, that there are many women who are ready to take on positions given by affirmative action, and yet they are not ready. They have not prepared themselves. They have not built capacity. They have not read. They are not ready to take on the role, but well, the government is providing it. And at the end of the day, society is so ready to judge them because they are female. So I think that is a role to play. But then also society itself, my prayer is that one day we shall not look at the Right Honorable Prime Minister as a female Prime Minister. We shall look at her as a Prime Minister. Then the other disturbing thing is how we have so many women that have been on the affirmative seats in Parliament, and for every other term they come back for those very seats, and then we expect that now that they have been empowered, they have made it there, they can now come and actually compete with the men. We have more than it takes to actually outcompete men. If you are to study many of the runs, when a woman is in a race, she's trouble, she's a threat. Edgar can Edgar can witness to that. But the issue is we need to go back to the young generation of ladies and let them know that they are actually independent. I think if at all the future would be female, we need to start with the younger people. When you look at a lady who still thinks that the boyfriend should pay their rent, then we see that we still have a problem. I think it is a narrative that goes back to the heart of every woman, to the heart of every society, to the heart of the very earth that brings us forth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kausinja. Kausinja Masi thinks that everyone is responsible in as far as this fight is concerned, and that women should stop throwing pity parties. I also read that in the comment section. So going to Ahereza, I promised to people. So Ahereza, you get to ask a question. Please make sure it is short and precise. We're running out of time.
What are those deliberate moves you think maybe Sabrina or you, those deliberate moves the women organizations or anyone about women can do to change all this narrative, a deliberate move? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ahereza. So Edgar, you're going to answer that question. I hope you do it in very little time because we are closing up in 1 minute or less. Thank you. What are those deliberate moves?
Okay, thank you so much. So the deliberate moves that organizations should do is number one, to stop advocating just for inclusion, but also make aware of the question of impact. Number two is just like how Mercy said, that when there's a problem, we say the problem is with the women. That is if they are leaders. But then when it's men, we say it's just with individuals. The same thing applies to achievements. When an achievement happens when you have a female leader, oh my God, the women have won. When the same achievement is made by a male leader, he's looked at as an individual. So that problem cuts both ways. Yeah, I can agree maybe it's a society problem. And yes, we ought to look at leaders as leaders. And as leaders, you are accountable. That's the message that those civil organizations should preach. As leaders, you are accountable to society and not to just women. And and you should do all those things, as individuals. And you should, and whoever comes against you on the merits of leadership, please don't go against running. Oh my God, they're against me because I'm a woman. No, they're against you because of your failures as an individual. You're responsible to society. You must give accountability, and where you fail short, don't go again running out under wings of feminism and all that in patriarchal society. Those are individual problems. Very clear. We need impact. We need such as a message.
Okay. Thank you very much, Edgar, and thank you very much, everyone that has been with us tonight. Key issues to take home: there is an issue of mindset. As women, we need to work on our mindset, and also before we have others view us as capable, we need to view ourselves as capable. We need to stand up and go for those positions. No one is going to push us. And someone has also commented that leadership is not a leadership position. Leadership begins with you. How do you handle your business? How do you handle your family? How do you handle your academics? How do you handle your job? And if you can figure out how to be a leader in those spaces that you already have, then it sure as heaven will be easy for you to handle the positions that are handed over to you or the positions that you get. I've had so many comments and I want to read all of them, but to sum them all up, it is the issue of pity party. Women need to show up for their role. Women need to go out there and stop calling themselves women and thinking they are weak. And that we need to view ourselves as leaders in our own right, and therefore makes us more in position to get those leaders. So we are also very honored to have in the room with us the country head of Global Platform Uganda, Mr. Primus Bahidri. I beg that he gives us a closing statement, but before he does, I want to thank Edgar and Sabrina for being a very, very incredible panel and for giving this subject the depth it requires. I want to thank the audience for being very active, for increasing participation in the chat room, and for having all these incredible issues brought to light. Thank you so much. Thank you so much indeed. Now over to you, Mr. Primus Bahidri. I pray that you close this meeting with an address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kenyana, our moderator this afternoon, Edgar and Sabrina, the panelists, and the audience for the wonderful interaction this afternoon. I enjoyed myself hearing you articulate the issues that are affecting society. I just want to make a comment that yes, there is injustice that most of us are facing, but perhaps this injustice affects more women and young women especially, and a young girl child, because of the traditional patriarchal system that has not favored them. When you're born as a man in Africa or as a boy, you already enjoy a privileged position. And somehow this continues to affect us even in old age, at workspace, in economic inclusion, and others. So the onus is on us to continuously challenge the narrative and ensure that we create a society where equity is not only talked about, but equity is lived, not only for women and men, but for men, women, children, and everyone. I think for me, that is what is pertinent. Two, I want to thank you for utilizing this space. As a global platform, we thought that this was an important space for us to continue as a debate, engage, and it's only going to get better. And it's my prayer that you take the space and own it. It's not a global platform space, but a young people's space. Like we always say, we exist for young people, we work for young people, and live with young people to ensure that we create a generation where we are respected, where human rights are respected, but where the voice of each and everyone is respected. I see it is exactly 3 p.m. and I know the moderator would like to keep time. I want to thank you all and wish you a good afternoon as we continue to engage on Twitter and other platforms on this question of women leadership in this country, where they are majority, but in leadership they are minority, and we are even discussing it. I thank you and wish you a good afternoon.